Masechet Zevaḥim, Daf Samech Zayin. The Mishnah teaches, Vechulan en metamein bebet habeli'ah umo'alin bahem chutz mechatat ha'of she'asa'ah lemata kema'aseh chatat l'shem chatat. This Mishnah is referring to the previous Mishnah, the beginning of the Perek, that brought different scenarios of chatat ha'of and olat ha'of, and said that if you bring korban chatat ha'of and you do everything properly, that's the case that's right here, then that's a valid kosher sacrifice. And same thing with an olah, if you do everything properly, then that's kosher sacrifice. However, if you have in mind the wrong type of korban, or you do it in the wrong place, or you prepare it in the wrong way, for most of those cases, the korban will be pasul. That's what we were talking about in the previous Mishnah. And now we learn that in all these cases, that flesh of that bird will not cause tum'ah inside the throat. Some background about a nevela. An animal that's a nevela, that's any animal, kosher or not kosher, that dies without shechita, the carcass of the animal causes tum'ah by someone who touches it or carries it. That's regarding an animal. But bird is a little different. If it's a kosher bird that is not sanctified, just a regular kosher bird, if one does shechita, that's good. Then it will not cause tum'ah. But if it dies in another way, for example, if you do milika on a non-kosher bird, if you do milika on a non-consecrated bird, then it will be a nevela. However, if it's a consecrated bird and you do milika, that's the proper way to do it. And therefore, a milika on a consecrated bird is the proper way and is not a nevela, will not cause tum'ah. Now, even a bird that is a nevela and causes tum'ah, it's not by touching or carrying it, but only if one swallows it, and it's while it's inside a person's throat, that's when it transfers tum'ah, not by touching it. So that's what we're referring to here with bebet habeli'ah. So here's what we're learning. Regarding all the cases in the previous Mishnah, both those that one does properly or that one does improperly in the wrong place, in the wrong procedure, or with the improper intention. So whether the bird korban is valid or invalid, they all will not cause tum'ah bebet habeli'ah. Why not? Because they're all talking about sanctified birds. There are birds that one designated either as a korban olah or as a korban chatat. And therefore, since they are sanctified birds, the proper way to kill them is through milika. And one did milika. In all the cases, one did milika. Question is if you did milika this way or that way, with the head severed completely, like it's supposed to be for korban olah, or still attached like it's supposed to be for korban chatat. And maybe you did it the wrong way. But no matter what, you still did milika. And since you did milika, even if the bird is invalid as a korban, still it's not a nevela, and therefore will not transmit tum'ah, not in the throat or not in any other way. And furthermore, that's one law. The second law is mo'alin ba, that one will commit me'ilah if you get benefit from it. Now this is going to be true for it would be true for animals too. But let's talk about birds. From the time that it's consecrated, it's sanctified, nobody is allowed to get personal benefit from it, or else it'll be me'ilah. For korban olah remains me'ilah the entire time, no matter what. Even after you sprinkle the blood, the rest of it is no one can benefit from it. It has to be burnt completely. And so therefore, for all scenarios of korban me'ilah, of korban olah, there will be me'ilah. And again here, even though you messed up and did some aspect of it in the wrong way, and becomes pasul, even though it's not a proper korban, still no one can use it, even if it's not proper korban. So that would mean that you can no longer continue with the burning of it. You have to take it outside and burn it outside. But the Kohen cannot benefit from it, so therefore if he does, he is still committing me'ilah. That's true for any case of olah. Regarding korban hatat, here we have one exception. If it's a korban hatat and you do everything correctly, as it says here, you do it below, as a chatat, l'shem hatat, then once you sprinkle the blood, squeeze the blood, then the body, the entire body of the bird becomes permitted for the Kohanim to eat. And since it's permitted for them to eat, there's no longer me'ilah. So that's the one exception for me'ilah. But any korban hatat, if you do it the wrong way, and that means it's not edible for the Kohanim, you designate as a korban hatat, but you did one of these things in the wrong way, it's pasul. And since it's pasul, it's not going to be permitted to Kohen, so then you would commit me'ilah. That's the beginning of the Mishnah. Now, here's a case where we have a machloket about. Ola ta'ov she'asa lemata k'maseh hatat l'shem hatat. You have a bird that's designated as a korban olah, but then you messed up on all three things. You did it below the red line, and you did the activity as a korban hatat, and you had in mind it would be a hatat. What's the status of that? It's definitely pasul. Okay, there's no question about that. That's we learned before. It's going to be pasul as a korban. However, how about me'ilah? Rabbi Eliezer omer mo'alim ba. Rabbi Yoshua omer en mo'alim ba. Rabbi Eliezer says it is me'ilah. Why not? It's a korban olah. So a korban olah forever is going to be me'ilah. Simple. Doesn't matter what you do with it. Rabbi Yoshua says no me'ilah, because as the Gemara will explain further, once you do all the things as a korban hatat, it actually effectively becomes a korban hatat. And since it is a korban hatat, therefore, one is no longer liable to me'ilah. Now, to qualify, there is some discussion about whether the Kohanim would be allowed to eat it in such a case. And in fact, you see in the note here, Tiferet Yisrael says yes. Even though it was a korban olah as designated, but he did everything as a korban hatat, so then the Kohanim can even eat it. Although it still will not fulfill the obligation of the owner. Tosafot says, no, not so. It's disqualified as a korban. They cannot eat it. It's not a valid korban. However, since they did everything as a korban hatat, even though they're not permitted to eat it, if they do, it would not be me'ilah. So anyway, one way or another, they do not commit me'ilah. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua. And now we're going to have some back and forth argument about this. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Uma im hatat she'en mo'alin ba lishma, kesheshinat shema mo'alin ba. He's going to prove his opinion based on a kal vachomer. If regarding a korban hatat, where as long as you do the korban hatat lishma, there's no me'ilah, so korban hatat is less susceptible to me'ilah. But when you change the lishma, any korban hatat that you do for lishem, something else, then it's going to be disqualified and is going to commit me'ilah. So you see that korban hatat, which is basically initially not liable to me'ilah after you sprinkle the blood, but if you change the name, it will be me'ilah. Olah shemo'alim ba lishma kesheshinat shema enodin shimalu ba, or korban olah, and that's what we're talking about, olah ta'of, where if you do it with intention of olah of an olah, then you do get me'ilah. So you see that is more susceptible to me'ilah. So in that case, if you change your intention of a korban olah, like in this case when you do an olah as a hatat, all the more so, you should commit me'ilah. Okay, that makes sense. Korban hatat, which has no me'ilah, but when you do the wrong intention is me'ilah, olah, which even in the best of cases you commit me'ilah, certainly when you change the intention, it should also be me'ilah. Okay, good point. Amar lo, Rabbi Yoshua lo. Im amarta bechatat sheshinat shema l'shem olah, sheken shinat shema l'dabar sheyesh bo me'ilah. No, you bring it for an example from a korban hatat, where if you change the intention for an olah, then it's going to become me'ilah. Why? Simple, because you changed its intention to something for which you would be liable to me'ilah. If it's a chatat, and you have in mind chatat by itself, there's no me'ilah once you sprinkle the blood. But now you change the intention to an olah, which has me'ilah, so that makes perfect sense. So you can't compare that to this case. Tomar be'olah sheshinat shema l'shem hatat, sheken shinat shema l'dabar she'en bo me'ilah. Here you have a case of an olah where you change the intention to be a chatat, and then a chatat is something that there's no me'ilah. So you can't make a kal vachomer like this. You can't compare a case where you're changing to something that has me'ilah to a case of something that is not me'ilah. So we should follow your intention. And although it's a korban olah, but now you intended for korban chatat, okay, so then you intend for korban chatat, that will kick in, and you won't be liable to me'ilah, just like if you have a chatat and you have intention to olah, you have intention for something that has me'ilah, so that will kick in. Whatever you intend, that's what we will apply. אמר לו רבי אליעזר, והרי קודשי קודשים, ששחתן בדרום ושחתן לשם קודשים קלים, יוכיחו. Rabbi Eliezer says, I will bring a proof from קודשי קודשים, comparing it to קודשים קלים. Now, one word about קודשים קלים, there is no me'ilah for קודשים קלים at all, whatsoever. And so, if we have Kodshei Kodashim, that you're supposed to do it in the north. All Kodshei Kodashim is do Shechita in the north. Let's say you didn't, and you did it in the south. And you had in mind, this is going to be a Shelamim offering, or any other Kodshei Kodashim. That will be a proof here, because you, Sheken Shinat Shemam L'davar Shen Bo Me'ilah, U'Mo'alin Bahen. You took something that's Kodshei Kodashim, which would have Me'ilah, and you changed it to Kodshei Kodashim Kalim, where there is no Me'ilah. And yet, if you do that, you still commit me'ilah. That's the law. And so you see that we don't just follow the intention as you said, but rather we don't follow the intention. It remains what it was before Kodshei Kodashim, and there is me'ilah. Afatal titmal ha'olah, afal pi sheshina shem al davar shen bo me'ilah shim alu ba. And therefore, don't wonder to me about the korban olah, even though you changed it to something to a chatat where there is no me'ilah, you should still get me'ilah. And so this example that I brought here to of Kodashim Kalim is a proof that we don't just follow whatever the intention is, whether it's towards Me'ilah or towards no Me'ilah, but rather we keep it at Me'ilah, even though you changed your mind to be Kadashim Kalim. Amar lo Rabbi Yoshua, lo, im amarta bekodshei kodashim, sheshechatan badarom ushchatan l'shem kodshei kodashim kalim, sheken shinat shemam l'davar sheyesh bo isur ve'eter, tomar be'olah sheshinat shemam l'davar shekulo heter. Bishop says, no, you cannot compare these two things, because if you're going to give me a case of kodshei kodashim that you slaughtered it in the south, where you do Kodashim Kalim, you can do anywhere in the Azara, and you had in mind also Kodshei Kodashim Kalim, and there you did in fact change it to something, you changed its name, you changed its intention, but that you changed to intention of something that has both prohibited parts and permitted parts. Kodashim Kalim, like a Korban Shelamim, some parts of it, like certain fats, have to be placed on the Mizbeach, and other parts can be eaten by the Kohen, and so therefore some parts will be Me'ilah, and some parts will not be Me'ilah, even after the sprinkling of the blood. So that's part and part. So that's why you could say over there that yes, indeed it remains me'ilah, because some is prohibited and some is permitted. You can't bring me that as a proof for tomar be'olah sheshinat shemal davar shekulo heter. You can't bring me that as a proof for a bird that is an olah, or a bird that is a chatat offering, a bird that is designated as an olah offering, that you offer shelo lishma as a chatat offering, because there that is kulo heter. A bird that is a chatat offering, you just put the blood on the mizbeach, and the entire bird is permitted to the kohanim. None of it goes on the mizbeach. And so therefore, that's why I say, yes, I would agree with your example that Kodshei Kodashim, that you have in mind as Kodashim Kalim, there it remains Kodshei Kodashim and Me'ilah, because some of it is prohibited. But in the case of Olah, where you changed in mind to be a chatat, where a chatat it's all permitted, there I think it changed the status, and it's no longer treated as a korban olah, but rather as a korban chatat, and therefore no me'ilah. Tanya, the Gemara then brings a baraita that continues the conversation. Amar lo Rabbi Eliezer le Rabbi Yoshua, Asham sheshechato basafon l'shem shelamim yochiach sheshinat shemo u'mo'alin bo. Rabbi Eliezer tells Rabbi Yoshua, how about a korban Asham? That's a type of Kodshei Kodashim, and if you do it in the north, and you have in mind, it's just going to be a shelamim. So that's the wrong intention for Korban Asham. And we could prove from there you changed its name, you changed the intention of the type of Korban, and you still get Me'ilah. Even though shelamim would not be something that gets Me'ilah. It's Kodashim Kalim. Ve'afata al titmal ha'olah, shafa pishashinat shema, shim aluba. And therefore you should not wonder about a Korban a bird olah, that even though you change its name, you should get me'ilah. And so here, just like asham changed to shelamim, you get me'ilah, so too, olah that you changed to chatat, you should get me'ilah, even though you're in both cases you're changing it to something that would not have me'ilah. Amar lo Rabbi Yoshua lo, im amarta be'asham she'im shina et shemo, lo shina et mekomo, tomar be'olah she'shina et shema ve'shina et mekoma. Rabbi Yoshua says, no, you cannot compare your example to my example, because regarding a korban asham, even though you changed the intention of the type of korban it is, you do not change its place, because it was asham, and so that has to be done in the north, and you did change it to a shelamim, but a shelamim can also be done in the north, and so both of these can be sacrificed in the north. There's no problem with that. Shelamim can be offered anywhere, but including in the north. So you didn't change the place where it has to be slaughtered. You cannot compare that to a korban olah, sheshinat shema v'shinat mekoma, where if you have a bird that's a korban olah, and it's supposed to be, that has to be above the line, and now you did it as a korban chatat, so you changed what the intention of the type of korban, and also its location, that's going to be on the bottom. That is a bigger change, and therefore, with the small change that you mentioned, it remains me'ilah. But this is a big change, and therefore I say it changes its identity altogether, becomes a chatat, and there's no me'ilah. Amar lo Rabbi Eliezer, Asham sheshechato badarom, l'shem shelamim yochiach, sheshinat shemo v'shinat mekomo u'mo'alin bo. Rabbi Eliezer says, I will bring a proof from in Asham that you did the shechita in the south as a shelamim. Asham is kodesh kodashim. It's supposed to be in the north, and so now you messed up with two things. You did it in the south, and you had in mind shelamim, where you changed its name and also its place, u'mo'alin bo, and yet nevertheless it remains me'ilah. Afata al titma la olah shafa pi sheshinat shema v'shinat mekoma mo'alin ba. So you should not be wondrous about the korban olah that you changed into a chatat, where even though you changed the type of korban and the place, you should still get me'ilah. So this is a response to what you said over here, where you didn't change the place. Okay, here now I gave you a case where you did change the place. You did it instead of the north, you did it in the south. Amar lo Rabbi Yoshua lo, im amarta be'asham sheshinat shemo v'shinat mekomo v'lo shinat ma'asav, tomar be'olah sheshinat shema v'et ma'aseha v'shinat mekoma. Rabbi Yoshua says your case is not similar to the case that I'm talking about, because in your case of the asham, it's true, you changed the name of it, and you also changed the place. You did it in the south instead of the north, but you did not change anything about the process of the ceremony of how you slaughter it and what you do with it. That stayed the same. That's why it remains me'ilah in that case. But you can't compare that to my case of the bird olah, where you changed all three things, not only the intention to a chatat, but also the way that you offer it, and you also changed its place. So that these two are the same. The shema and mekoma are the same as your example, but maaseh is not the same. So therefore, since in my case you're changing all three things, that's why it changes its identification, and now it takes on the laws of a korban chatat, where there is no longer a prohibition of me'ilah. Amar Rava, v'nemale asham sheshechato badarom l'shem shelamim b'shinui ba'alim sheshina et shemo v'shinat mekomo v'shinat ma'asav. That was the end of the baraita. But now Rava is wondering, why didn't Rabbi Eliezer give a further response? We ended with the words of Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Eliezer could have had a good comeback, because he could have found a case where you have three things that are done wrong, as it would be korban asham, where you do it in the south like a shelamim, and you have in mind a shelamim, and also you have in mind the wrong owner. That would be equivalent to doing something in the wrong way, because that would be the same as korban olah, where you did it as a korban chatat, and you changed the place, you did it below, and you also did it in the wrong way. So you could have had a similar case, and regarding korban asham, that is still, that you do it as a shelamim in all three ways, it still is me'ilah. So therefore, the korban olah that you do wrongly as a chatat in all three ways should also be me'ilah. How come Rabbi Eliezer didn't respond in this way? Rava continues and explains why. From the fact that Rabbi Eliezer did not respond in this way, it means he got to the bottom line of Rabbi Yoshua's reasoning. And so he didn't have to ask any further because he understood why he said what he said. What did he say? What was his reasoning? We have it here. Damar Rav Ada bar Ahava, Omed Haya Rabbi Yoshua, Ola ta'of, Sha'asa lemata, Kimaseh chatat, L'shem chatat, Kevan shemalak basiman echad, Nimshechet v'nasit, Chatat ta'of. If you have a bird that's designated as a korban olah, and you did the activity below the line, wrong place, and you did it as a chatat, wrong type of korban, it's supposed to be an olah, and you do it in that way, and you do it having in mind it's a chatat, all three things wrong. Once you do melika of one siman, which is the way what you do for korban chatat, since you're already doing it below the line, and you have in mind the chatat, that's it, it transforms into a chatat ta'of, and that's his reasoning, and therefore, right, it's a complete transformation. That explains everything that he says. You can bring him any number of kal vachomes and whatever you want, but he's not going to change his mind because his reasoning is it actually transforms. So that's why he says what he says. Now we wonder, maybe it works the other way around also. If you have a bird that's designated as a korban hatat, and you do the activity above the line, that's in the wrong place, that would be like an olah, and you do the activity of an olah, and you also you have in mind that it will be a korban olah. Once you do melika for one siman, then let it turn into a olah ta'of, because you did it above the line and you had in mind that it would be a korban olah. So maybe it would work the other way also. Maybe you'll say yes, indeed that is so. According to Rabbi Yoshua, it would be become an olah. But that can't be because Rabbi Yochanan said name would be bena'ah. He said this is the proper arrangement of the Mishnah. And so what does that mean? My love, kachi hasa'a vetula. Doesn't that mean that whatever it says in the Mishnah, that's what he said, and not anything more? And in the Mishnah, we only see that Rabbi Yoshua argued when the case of korban hatat that you performed as an olah. He didn't say the other way around. So maybe that doesn't that mean that he disagrees and would not think that a chatat can turn into an olah? So we say no. La kach hatzah shel kula mishnah. No, maybe what Rabbi Yochanan actually said was this is the arrangement of the entire Mishnah, meaning what we said about this particular case is true regarding other cases also that are mentioned in the Mishnah. And therefore, although the Mishnah only says explicitly that according to the Yoshua, an olah that you treat as a chatat will turn into chatat, maybe indeed a chatat that you treat as an olah will turn into an olah. So that's what we propose right now. But then Rav Ashi disagrees with that and says it doesn't work in the same. It doesn't work the same in both directions because Rav Ashi Amar Bishlama olah ta'ov she'asa lemata k'maseh chatat l'shem chatat kevan deha hechshera besiman echad v'hechshera b'shne simanim ve'olah ta'ov lemata leta kevan demalak ba siman echad nimshechet v'nasit chatat ta'ov. It makes sense regarding a korban olah that is designated as a bird, and you did it below, like a chatat does, and you did the action of a chatat, and you had in mind a chatat. There, since it's valid, where one of these is valid with one siman, that's a chatat, and the olah requires two simanim, and there's no such thing as an off, a bird that's an olah that's below, and you're doing all these things below. So since it's below, and you have in mind the chatat, once you do melika on one siman, you have to do one siman before the second one. You can't do both exactly at the same time. So once you do one siman, even if you're going to do the second one later, but once you do one siman, immediately it becomes chatat ta'of. And so it immediately transforms into chatat ta'of since it's below, and you're having that in mind, one siman, and all you need is one siman for a chatat. So that's it. It's already a chatat, and there's no way it's going to turn into an olah after that. So that's why it works that way. Olah turns into an off, because one siman is already enough. But the other way will not work very smoothly. Ela chatat ha'of, kevan damar mor milika b'chol makom keshera. Now, for chatat ha'of, now we know the law is that milika can be done anywhere. So above and below for the chatat, for the milika itself, that's not really going to matter. So even though you have a korban chatat in this case, and you should be below, but you did it above. Well, that would still be okay. Once you do a chatat that you have in mind the wrong intention, anytime you have a chatat and you have in mind something else, it's already pasul. So here you have a chatat and you do one siman. Now you have to do one siman before you do the second one. So immediately you did one siman and you had in mind a chatat. At that point, just freeze frame, and it's already pasul, because that one siman is in fact a ma'aseh chatat. Chatat is one siman. So you did a ma'aseh chatat with the wrong intention. The place actually doesn't really matter whether it's above or below. So now it's already pasul. Ki adar malik be'idach siman hechi memashcha ta'avya ola ta'of. Now, even if right after that you go and puncture the second siman as a korban olah, but that it's already too late, because now it's already a chatat pisula, because you did one siman with wrong intention, which is a ma'aseh chatat, and that's wrong intention is pasul. So that's it. It now it's defined. You can't go back now and retroactively when you do the second one, say, look, see, now that he did the second one, see, it was really an olah, and the fact that he had in mind an olah and it was above, okay, so let it be an olah. No, it doesn't work smoothly in that direction, and therefore Rav Ashi says the Mishnah is precise. Rabbi Yoshua says only regarding an olah that can become a chatat, but not the other way around. Gufa Amar Rav Ada bar Ahava Omer Haya Rabbi Yoshua Olah ta'of she'asah lemata kema'aseh chatat l'shem chatat kevan shemalak ba siman echad nimshechet v'na'asit chatat ta'of. Now we're going back and quoting in full, and we're going to ask a number of questions about this statement of Rav Ada bar Ahava, who explained the reasoning behind Rabbi Yoshua, and he said that if you have a bird that was designated as a korban olah, but you do everything as a chatat, you do it below the line, and you treat it to do the ceremony as a chatat, and you have in mind it's a chatat. Once he does milika on one of the pipes, which is appropriate for a chatat, so now already it turns into a chatat ta'of. And for that reason, Rabbi Yoshua says that once you sprinkle the blood, then one will not be liable to me'ilah, like a korban chatat, where you're not liable to me'ilah. And that was his reasoning. The olah ta'of effectively becomes a korban chatat. And now that's a very significant change, where it's designated as a korban olah, but now it becomes a korban chatat, and that would seem to mean that it can fulfill the obligation of someone who has to bring a korban chatat. And therefore, we're going to ask a question about this from Masechet Kinim. Masechet Kinim is about a woman who gives birth. She must bring two korbanot. One is an olah and one is a chatat. If she's wealthy, she brings the korban olah as an animal, but if not, she can bring it as a bird. So we're talking about a poor woman who recently gave birth, and she brings two birds, one as a korban chatat and one as a korban olah. She can designate which one is which and tell the kohen which one is supposed to be which, or she could not designate it, and then the kohen will decide which one is which. Either way is fine. Now we're going to get into a slightly complicated case. Let's see. Tashema, chatat lezo ve'olah lezo. We're talking about two women. They both gave birth, and so they both have to bring a pair. But let's say one of them brought already their korban olah. One of them already brought their korban chatat. Here's a chart. We'll call them Rachel and Leah. Rachel already brought her olah, so she only has to bring korban chatat. So she brings a bird. Here, kohen, here's my bird for chatat. Please offer it on my behalf. half. And Leah, she already brought her chatat, and so she has to bring a korban olah. And so she does so. All right, now the Kohen has these two birds, and he does something wrong. There's a number of scenarios. Asa shetehen lema'la. He offered them both above the red line. Mechesa kasher or mechesa pasul. Well then, half of them are good and half of them are bad. Let's say there's only two. So that's easy. So one is good and one's bad. The one that is designated to be an olah, that's fine. He did above the line. So Leah is fulfilled her obligation. However, Rachel, he sacrificed her bird above the line, but it's supposed to be a chatat, so it's invalid. She will have to bring another one. That's the first case. Next case, shetehen lemata, mechesa kasher mechesa pasul. So that's the same thing. If he offered both of the birds below the line, then also half will be good, half will be bad. And here, the Rachel fulfilled her obligations below the line. That's proper. But Leah needs a korban olah. It was given below the line. That's invalid. And so Leah will have to bring another one. And now, what if achat lema'la v'achat lemata? He took the birds. He got them mixed up. He doesn't know which one was which. One of them he offered above the line and one below the line. Now, it is possible, 50-50 chance that he got it right and he did the olah above the line and hatat below the line. But we don't know. Nobody knows. Therefore, shetehen pisulot, we have to assume that maybe it was the other way around and they're both invalid. Shani omer, hatat kareba lema'la, ve'olah kareba lemata. Because we say, meaning we assume or worry that it's possible that the hatat was given above and the olah given below. And since that is a possibility, they both have to bring another korban, another bird. Now it's true, an olah you can give as a voluntary offering anytime. Chatat, you can't just volunteer to give a chatat offering. You have to be liable for giving it. And here it's a safek. Even though it's a safek, still you have to bring the korban chatat. The difference would be only that the kohanim will not eat from the meat because maybe it did not have to be brought. But so they can't eat from the meat as they usually would for korban chatat. But they still have to bring it. That is what the Mishnah teaches in Masechet Kinim. And now here's the challenge against Rabbi Yoshua. And now here is the challenge against Rav Ada bar Ahava's explanation of Rabbi Yoshua, who said that a korban olah that's offered below becomes, in effect, a korban chatat, and assuming that even means it can fulfill the obligation for someone that needs to bring a korban chatat, then we have a challenge regarding the last case. In the last case, one was above and one was below. Let's look at the chart. And so, if he did it in the correct order, 50-50 chance, the olah was above and the chatat is below, then good, everybody's happy. And what if it was the other way around, and the chatat was offered above and the olah below? Well, according to Rabbi Yoshua's principle, the olah that's offered below, having in mind it's a chatat, and he treated it like a chatat, had in mind that it's a chatat, and did it below the line, so it should be effective as a korban chatat. This Mishnah is talking about a case where Rachel and Leah pooled their money together, and so they both had ownership over both of them. It's not that Rachel said, this is mine, and Leah said, this is my bird, because then the bird that Leah brought would not be able to fulfill Rachel's obligation. But rather, we're talking about a case where, since they pooled their money together, it doesn't matter which bird is which, and therefore, even though one is designated, it has to be a chatat, one is an olah, but they both have ownership over both of them. And so therefore, this olah was designated to be an olah, it's true. It's owned by both of them equally. Now he took this olah and he did it below the line and turned it into a chatat. Okay, so let it fulfill the obligation for Rachel. In other words, Rachel, who has to bring a chatat, should be off the hook, because either way, either he brought the chatat properly below the line, or he brought the olah below the line, and the olah below the line turns into a chatat. And therefore, Rachel should fulfill her obligation. How will Rabbi Yoshua explain this last clause in the Mishnah? And the answer is, Emor Amar Rabbi Yoshua bechad gabra, Petre gabre mi amar. Rabbi Yoshua only said his principle regarding one owner. If one person brings a bird and it's designated as olah, and then the kohen makes it a chatat, so for that same person, it will fulfill their obligation for a chatat if they needed to bring a korban chatat. That works for the same person. But Rabbi Yoshua did not say that it can extend to two different people, that one person had in mind, this is my olah. So since designated to be a korban olah, that's for one person. So that means he's having in mind, korban olah, this will be for le'ah in this case, since he's thinking it's a korban, since it is a korban olah designated to be for her obligation, and then he has in mind this olah that's going to be for Rachel, but that's already a different person. So the Yoshua would not say to that extent that something that's designated to fulfill one person's obligation will be able to switch in from an olah to a chatat to fulfill somebody else's obligation. That's already a step beyond what Rabbi Yoshua said, and therefore Rabbi Yoshua will agree. In the case of two different people, it cannot change from one person to another. Only if it's owned by the same. Only if it's the same person, one person who owns both of them and has to bring a korban olah and a korban chatat, and then it gets messed up. Okay, for that one person, what he brought as an olah can count for him as a chatat, but not for two different people. Next, we try another challenge against Rabbi Yoshua from another Mishnah in Masechet Kinim. Tashema, chatat ve'olah, ustuma umeforeshet. This is more complicated. Here again, we have two women, Rachel and Leah. But in this case, they each have to bring 3 birds. One of them has to bring a chatat and an olah, and an additional chatat. One of them has to bring a chatat and an olah and an additional olah. So between the 3 of them, they have to bring 3 pairs, 3 olot and 3 chataot, and one of them has to bring 2 chataot and 1 olah, the other one 2 olot and 1 chatat. Okay, now the 3 are designated in different ways, 3 different ways. The first pair, they designated that the chatat will be for Rachel and the olah will be for Leah. So that is designated the type of animal and for whom it will be. The other one is situma, meaning that they did not designate them at all, not who owns them and not what type of korban they are. So since the woman did not designate them, then the kohen designates them, and by just doing whatever he does with them, that will end up being a designation, even if he doesn't say outright this is for chatat. If he does a chatat, so then and someone needs it, so then it will fulfill that person's obligation. So these are like jokers. You could use it for whatever you want. Whatever it's used for, it will fulfill that obligation. And the third one, it's not, they are mifurashot, meaning one is an olah, one's a chatat, but not for whom they will be. So this one has to be an olah, and it will be credited towards whoever needs an olah. It's not specifically for Rachel and Leah. So the first one is completely designated, both the type of korban and the person. The next one is not designated at all, and the third pair is designated only the type of korban, but not for whom. And now let's see what the kohen does. Ideally, he should take from each pair, but this chatat below and this olah above. This chatat below and this olah above, and this one it doesn't matter. And if he does it that way, then all 3 obligations for both women will be fulfilled. But of course, he doesn't do that. Asa kulan lema'la mechesa kasher mechesa pasul. If he offers all of them above the line, then half will be good and half will be bad. It fulfills all the obligations for the korban olah, but none of the obligations for korban hatat. Kulan lemata mechesa kasher umechesa pasul. And same thing, if he does them all below the line, then half of them will be kosher, half of them will not. It will fulfill the obligation for all the korban hatats, but not for any of the korban olahs. So that whoever has to bring the 2 chatats will be good. They brought 2 chatats, and will have to still bring another olah because everything was below the line. And the other person who had to bring 1 chatat, that's good. She'll fulfill that obligation, but she'll have to bring 2 more birds as an olah because they were all done, all the olot were done in the wrong way. חציין למעלה וחציין למטה אינה כשרה אלא סתומה ומתחלקת ביניהן. If he did half of them above and half of them below, but he wasn't careful about which one he does above and below. For each pair, he did 1 above and 1 below. So that means for this pair, he did 1 above, 1 below, but he wasn't careful. Maybe he did it correctly, but maybe he did the chatat above and the olah below. And if he did that, then they're both no good. And even if in this case, even if he did it, the olah below, and he considered it as a chatat and treated it like a chatat, but we already said, according to the Yoshua, it will not fulfill someone else's obligation. So there's no no problem here that Rabbi Yoshua would agree that here neither of them are good. They're both no good. We can look at this chart where we see that this first pair that's completely designated will be no good. Now, the second one, the situma, that's what we said here, that the situma is kosher. Because here, it doesn't matter which one he did above and below. They're not designated at all. So he did one above and one below. Very good. So now, one will fulfill someone's obligation for an olah, and the other, someone's obligation for a chatat, and then they'll bring another pair, and they'll just make a condition. If mine was the olah, then this new one will be, I'll need a chatat. If that one was a chatat, then I'll need an olah. And so these are totally good. They weren't designated to be a olah or a chatat, or for either person. So he does them with whatever he does above. That will end up being a korban olah, and that'll be for one or the other. And it doesn't really matter. They just bring another one and make a tenai, a condition to fulfill their other obligation. Now, here's the question is from the third one. These are designated to be chatat and olah, but not for the person. The Mishnah says they're both no good. But why are they both no good? If you did it the right way, okay, then it should be good. If you did it the wrong way, that means you took the korban that designated to be an olah and you did it below the line. Okay, but Rabbi Yoshua, you said if you take an olah and you do it below the line with intention to be a korban chatat and you do the rites as a korban chatat, then it should fulfill someone's obligation for a korban chatat. So it should fulfill that obligation. It wasn't designated that this will be only for le'ah or only for rachel. They jointly own it, so let it fulfill someone's obligation for a korban chatat. Why are you saying that they're both not good at all? Ve'ilu meforashin la ve'amayin hinameh de'olah kareba lemata timshoch v'teveh chatat ha'of. That's what we ask right now. The ones that were designated as the type of korban, although not for the person, why are they both not good? Even if the olah ended up on the bottom, it's 50-50 chance. Maybe the law was on top, and then that would be good, and the chatat would also be good. But even if the law went on the bottom, so it would turn into chatat off and should fulfill one obligation of chatat off. Maybe you'll say, oh, this Mishnah is not the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua. But can you say that? It has to be consistent with the next Mishnah that we will learn. Ta'ashema. We're now going to cite an extended series of Mishnayot from Masechet Kinim. The details of this are not part of the argument. The part of the argument is that at the end, Rabbi Yoshua makes a comment about this series of Mishnayot. From the fact that Rabbi Yoshua comments on it means that he agrees with it. And therefore, Rabbi Yoshua, you can't say over here that Rabbi Yoshua is not the author. So that's why we're quoting this series of Mishnayot, just to show that at the end, Rabbi Yoshua comments on it, and therefore you can't get away with this and say Rabbi Yoshua is not the author. All right, but these cases are going to get more and more complicated. So let's begin. So here's the first one of this series. Ha'isha shamra hare alai ken im eled zachar. She vows that she will bring a pair of birds, a nest. Ken is one nest. That's two birds. If I have a male child. So that means if she has a male child, Yalda Zachar, maybe Ashetekinim, she has to bring two nests. Achat l'nidra v'achat l'chobata. One for her neder. She vowed she would bring two birds. Now, if you vow to bring birds, you can only vow to bring a korban olah. You can't decide to bring a korban hatat. So she has to bring two birds as an olah for her neder, and one for her obligation because she just gave birth. And anytime you give birth, you have to bring one korban olah and one korban hatat. So now she has to bring three altogether, and here it is in this chart. You have she has to bring one for chova, which is a hatat and olah, and one for her neder, which is going to be two olahs. Now, the kohen, if he did it right, netanatan la kohen, hakohen sarich lasot shalosh lemala ve'achat lemata. He should do three above and one below. Lo asa ken. What if he didn't do that? El asa shetayim lemala u'shtayim lemata. He wasn't paying attention. He figured they're both chova, and so he did one of each pair, one above, one below, and the other pair also one above and one below. Well, in that case, the chovah was fulfilled, one above and one below, that's fine, but the other one above is good, but the one below is not good. He has to bring these two olahs. And so in that case, she'll have to bring one more bird as an olah in order to fulfill the third olah she did, because she got 2 out of 3. That's what we say here. So, omrim lach. He didn't ask her which one is which. Sedicha shetavi od pereda achat ve'takribenna lema'ala. She'll have to bring one more, and it will be offered above as the korban olah. That's all mimin echad. That's if it's one species, one type of bird, and now we're going to get even more complicated because there's two types of birds that you can bring as a korban: a tor or ben yonah, a pigeon and turtle dove. Here they're designated as blue and gray. So let's just call them blue and gray, so we don't get even more mixed up. And so here's the law. When you bring a pair, they have to be of the same type. So let's say you have a chovah, you have to bring a chatat and an olah. They have to be of the same type of bird. You can't mix and match and bring one blue one, that's a chatat, and a gray one as an olah. And so now, if she gave two species of birds, two blue ones and two gray ones. The rest are the same. The rest of the details are the same. She obligated herself to a neder, so that's two olahs and one chovah. And then he gives it all to her, all to the kohen. And the kohen, let's see the case, that's min echad. Mishne minin, tavi shenayim. She's going to have to bring two more birds. Let's see why. Well, he did one above and one below. So whatever he does first, we assume, since it's not designated, whatever he does first, we assume that will be for the chovah. Good. So he fulfilled the chovah. That's totally fine. But however, she did not fulfill one of the olahs. The problem is we don't know which one was which, and they have to match. So therefore, just in case, let's say he did the blue one first and then the gray one. Well, one of the gray ones is no good. So I have to bring another gray one to fulfill that korban olah. But let's say he did the gray ones first. That fulfills his korban chovah. Then he has to bring two blue ones as an olah, but he only had one blue one as an olah. So then she has to bring another olah from a blue one. And since we don't know which one he offered first, that would fulfill the chovah obligation. Therefore, she'll have to bring two more birds, one gray, one blue, to fulfill the third olah obligation that she has to bring. Peresha nidra. Now, in this case, the woman specified that her neder, the two olot that she vowed to bring, are going to be a specific type, a specific species. She said they're both going to be pigeons. The one that I bring for a neder is going to be pigeons. But then she forgot whether she said pigeons or turtle doves. So now this is a problem because she has to, in order to fulfill that obligation, she's going to have to bring two pigeons and two turtle doves because she doesn't remember which one she did. Okay, so Sricha Lavi Od Shalosh Peridin. Now, although what she's supposed to do in this case is bring two birds, it doesn't matter what type, for her chovah, and then two more pairs of birds for her neder, because she specified that her neder would be either gray or blue, but she doesn't remember which it is. So really, she should have to bring three pairs of birds. But let's say she doesn't. Instead, she brings two pairs of all the same type. All right, fine. The ones that she brings first, that will be for her chovah. So she got her chatat and olah. That's good. That's taken care of. Now, she brought the two gray ones. Now, if she had promised gray ones, then one of these will be proper because the kohen did one above and one below. If he did it proper, both above, then he would not have to bring another gray one. He would still have to bring two blue ones, but he did one above and one below. So if she had promised the gray ones, then that fulfills one gray one, but she'll have to bring one more gray one for that. However, it's possible that she had promised blue ones and she didn't bring any blue ones at all, and therefore she'll have to bring two blue ones. So that would be the result. She had designated one type of species, but then forgot what it was for that neder, and she brought all four of the same, and he did one above and one below for each, one above and one below for this. That's good. He did that fine. One above and one below for this. All right. If anything, he fulfilled one gray one, but not the other one. So he has to bring three birds. She has to bring three more birds altogether. One of the same type that she had brought and two of the different type that she had brought. Okay. That's that case. But that's all mimin echad. Then she would have to bring three. Next complication, mishne minin tavi arba. What if she had brought two different species? So, and the beginning of the case is the same. She said, if I have a male then I will bring a neder of a certain type of pigeons. But she forgot what she said, so it doesn't really matter what she said, but she has to bring of the type that she vowed. And therefore, she then brought, in fact, she brought 2 birds of one type and 2 birds of the other type. Okay, so now what happens? Though whatever the Kohen offers first, the Kohen did one above and one below of one, and one above and one below of the other. So whichever one he does first, that will fulfill her chovah obligation. Could be she did the blue, he offered the blue ones first. And then it could be that she had promised gray ones, but he only did one above and one below. So therefore, she will have to bring another gray one. That counts for this gray one. But it's possible that she actually promised blue ones in her promise, and the blue ones were already offered first as a chovah, and then there's no blue ones anymore. So in that, just in case that, she has to bring 2 blue ones. And furthermore, if he offered the gray ones first, then the gray ones will fulfill her obligation as a chovah. And then for the blue ones, he did one above and one below. If she had promised blue ones, so then one of them will be okay for the blue one, but she has to bring one more blue one. But what if she promised gray ones, and now the gray ones were used for the chovah? She didn't bring any gray ones for a korban olah, so therefore he has to bring the 2 gray ones. Basically, what we're saying is that the 2 of them will be for a chovah, and that could be the blue ones or the gray ones. So it's possible that she brought 0 for the olah, for her neder, and so has to bring one of each type, because she forgot which one she promised. So that makes sense. She'll have to bring 4 different animals. Kav'a nidra. Now it gets even more complicated, because she committed that she would bring all her korban olas at the same time. She would bring them together, meaning that when she brings her chovah and her neder, she has to bring them all at the same time. Now the chatat doesn't have to be at the same time, but the olah has to be at the same. The olah of the chovah has to be brought together with the other ones that she brings as a neder. So in that case, the result will be siricha shetavi od hamesh peridin lema'ala mimin echad. If she brought 4 of the same type, then she will have to bring 5 more to be brought above. And if she brings 2 pairs of different types, then she'll have to bring 6 more individual birds. Let's see how that works. So she promised that she's going to bring 2. If I have a boy, then I'm going to bring 2 pigeons. But she forgot if she said pigeons or the other one. So ideally what she should do is bring all at the same time, 1 pair of birds for her chovah. It doesn't matter what type. Any type is fine to fulfill the chovah. And whatever the Kohen does first, that will fulfill that. And they'll do 1 above and 1 below, as designated. And then she should bring 2 more pairs, because she forgot if she donated gray ones or blue ones. And so she should bring both, and the Kohen should offer them all above, all at the same time. And then that will be all the olahs will certainly be at the same time. That would be the ideal case if she would do that. But instead, she brings only 2 pairs. Let's say this case is they're all of the same type. And the Kohen does 1 above and 1 below. Okay, he did 1 above and 1 below, so this should fulfill her obligation for olah and hatat. It will fulfill the hatat. The problem is that the olah was not together with all of the other olot that she has to bring. So she's going to have to definitely bring another korban olah of the same type of the first thing that she brought, because that's going to now have to be together with whatever else she is obligated to bring. And now the other one, she only one of them is good, so she's definitely going to have to bring 2 more. And we don't even know which one she was obligated to bring, the white ones or the blue ones. So she'll have to bring 2 more white ones and 2 more blue ones together with another, the 5th one of the same type of the chovah, so that she brings all of her olahs. In other words, what the Kohen did was only the chatat, because he did 1 below. So that's the chatat. But then she has to bring all her olahs, and she doesn't know if it was white or blue. So she has to bring 1 of the same plus 2 olahs of gray and 2 olahs of blue to fulfill that obligation. Now, the same scenario, but in this case, she brought, instead of bringing 6, which she should have brought, she brought 2 of each type. Now, the Kohen might have offered two blue ones first. So that would then fulfill the chovah obligation, and that would be the korban hatat. And if so, she still has to bring all the korban olaz. And so for this, she'll have to bring, but she brought the second one of a different type. And we don't know which one was which. And so therefore, we're not sure if the second, the korban hatat that was brought was blue, then she's going to have to bring another korban olah that also is blue. And so that would be the blue one here to go along with the other two korban olahs that she promised. But those two could be both gray or both blue. She'll also have to bring that. How, on the other hand, if the Kohen offered the gray ones first, and it turns out to be it was the gray one that was the korban hatat, and so that will require another gray korban olah, because whatever you bring as chovah has to match. And the first one that he brought, although he did the hatat on the bottom and the olah on top, that's very good. But she did a kavua. She said, whatever korban olah I bring as for my chovah, I'm going to bring at the same time as the other korban olaz. So that means the new one that she brings as a replacement has to be of the same species as the original one. But we don't know which one was the original one, and therefore she's going to have to bring both a blue one and a gray one to replace the korban olah that was parallel to the korban hatat. And so that will be the one that will be replacing of that, the original. And because she never fulfilled her two korban olahs, because one was above and one was below, and it might even be the wrong species, so maybe she fulfilled one, maybe she fulfilled none, she's going to have to bring two blue ones and two gray ones, and that will be 6 korbanot altogether. And now for the last complication, netan natan la kohen ve'ena yodea mad natna. Halach kohen ve'asa ve'eno yodea me'asa sricha arba peridin lenidra ushtayim lechovata ve'chatat achat. We're talking about the same original case where she says, if I have a male child, then I will bring a neder, and that would be 2 olot. And she also specified that she would bring them at the same time as the korban olah for her chovah. And so then she gave 4 birds to the Kohen, but she doesn't know what she gave, of the same species, of different species, she doesn't know. And then the Kohen went and he offered them, but doesn't know the order he offered them, and doesn't know if he did them all on top or all on the bottom or half and half. So now we have no knowledge of anything. So basically, you have to redo the whole thing. It's actually even worse in some ways. She's going to have to bring 4 birds for her neder and 2 birds for her chovah and a korban chatat. So she's going to have to bring 7 altogether. Ben Azai omer sheteh chatat. Ben Azai is going to add another chatat to bring it up to 8 altogether. So let's see how this works. She brought something. She brought 4 birds. 2 pairs, and she doesn't know what she brought, whether of the same kind, whether this way, whether that way. She doesn't know if for her neder did she say that she's going to bring the gray ones or the blue ones. We don't know any of that, and we don't know about anything that the Kohen did, whether they're all above or all below. So we don't know. It could be that she fulfilled 0. It could be that she brought that he did one of the first pair below, and if he did one of the first pair below, then that would be a korban hatat. So it's possible that she has a korban hatat. She's going to have to bring all the korban olaz again, because she specified that it will be kavua, that all the korban olaz will be given at the same time. So let's add up all the things that she has to bring. She said she's going to bring a neder, and she specified which type, but she doesn't remember which type. So for sure she's going to have to bring 2 birds as an olah and of one type, and another 2 birds as an olah of the other type. So that's already the 4 that she has to bring as her neder. That's all possibilities. Now, for her chovah, she has to bring, at the same time that she brings her neder, she has to bring her chovah, but we don't know whether it's the blue or the gray that she promised, so she's going to have to bring another korban olah, both of the blue and of the gray, so it will match the other that she brought. Now, she also has to bring a korban hatat, because we don't know know if he did any below the line, and so he'll have to bring one korban hatat. They only has to bring one korban hatat because, according to Chachamim, against Ben Azai, we'll see in a second, if she already brought a korban, if the korban hatat was already brought, then okay, that's fine, because in any case she's bringing one of each type of olah and one of each type of the other olah. So whichever one she brought first, let's say it was a blue one that was in the original batch, a blue one was a korban hatat. Now you have an olah that's also a blue one. Okay, so that matches, that takes care of her chovah, and then she'll have two of the nedava, which of both kinds, so that will be fine. And if he did not, the kohen did not bring any korban chovah, even if he brought an olah for chovah, according to Chachamim, the type, the species is designated by the chatat, not by the olah. So even if it was some olah that was brought as a chovah, that will not designate anything, and so that you could start all over from the beginning. And so as long as he brings one as a korban hatat, whichever one that is, so that will be the hatat, that'll be a gray one. Let's say he picks gray, it'll be a gray one. And then one of these he's bringing as a chovah is of each type. So if he brought a gray, so then this one will also be gray. And then he's bringing two of each of the nedava, so that fulfills everything. That's 7. Ben Azai requires one more, because according to Ben Azai, he thinks that if in the original batch they brought no korban chatat, but he did bring a korban olah as a chovah, and that will designate the species that the chovah has to bring, that the chatat has to be also. So just in case in the original batch he did bring one above, and that would be the chovah, the olah chovah, and if that was gray, then he's going to have to bring a chatat also that's gray to match that one. If it was blue, he'll have to bring another chovah, a blue one, to match the olah that was originally brought, and plus everything else, we end up at 8. And so that's where Ben Azai gets 8. Now, the Mishnah continues with the following line. Amar Rabbi Yoshua. That's our Rabbi Yoshua that we've been discussing from beforehand. Zeu shamru kishu chai kolo echad, ushumet kolo shiba. Rabbi Yoshua is giving a witty statement. It says, this is similar to what they say, the folk saying, that when an animal, a sheep, is alive, it only makes one sound. It only bleats. It says ba, ba, that's it. But when it dies, it can make 7 sounds. How so? Because you can use the different parts of its body to make 7 different instruments. You have 2 horns to be trumpets, 2 shin bones, you make flutes out of them. They're hollow and you make holes, and then it's a flute. You take the skin and you can make a drum head, and you could take the large intestine to make harp strings, and the small intestine to make lyre strings, and then you get 7 instruments out of it. So he's saying this is similar. She made her one obligation upon herself. If she had paid attention and brought everything properly, then she would just have to bring those 4 birds. And if the Kohen did everything properly, then that's it. She would fulfill the obligation just with 4 birds. But because she forgot what she brought and the Kohen messed up, now they have to bring 7 more or even 8 more. And so you see how one simple thing becomes, now that it has died and we don't know what's what, can multiply into many things. So he's making a witty comparison between the two. The point for us is that the fact that Rabbi Yoshua makes a comment on all these whole series of Mishnayot here, where one obligation gets multiplied and multiplied, that means that Rabbi Yoshua is in agreement with the halachot that we just brought. And therefore, the original question that we brought, we can't say, Rabbi Yoshua is not the author of these Mishnayot. We have to say that Rabbi Yoshua agrees with these Mishnayot, and then we have the question from above, when we asked, how come we can't count the bird designated as a korban olah that was brought, even if it was brought below, it should count as a korban chatat and fulfill the obligation for korban chatat. And so we answer now finally, Rabbi Yoshua, when he says that the reasoning of Rav Ada bar Ahava's explanation of Rabbi Yoshua was that the korban olah that is treated and thought of as a chatat and done below the line, then it becomes a korban chatat. When he said it becomes a korban chatat, he only meant for the law of me'ilah. That now that since you treat it like a korban chatat, then once you sprinkle the blood, then it will not have a law of obligation, a prohibition of me'ilah anymore, no punishment of me'ilah, because it gets the law of a chatat with regard to the law of me'ilah. That's it. But it does not fulfill the obligation of the owner, who, if he has to bring a korban chatat, then this was designated as a korban olah. It doesn't fully become a korban chatat, such that the owner doesn't have to bring korban chatat anymore. He never said that, and therefore that was the basic assumption behind our entire question. But now that we understand this, then Rabbi Yoshua can surely be in agreement with all of these mishnayot, because even if the Kohen did everything below the line and as a korban chatat, if it was designated as a korban olah, then the owner will still have to bring another korban chatat. Just means that the Kohen won't violate me'ilah if he eats from it or gets benefit from it. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.